Chapter 48. In the morning, when Cuthbert Burbage arrived at the theatre, he found Pip plumping up the cushions for the expensive seats in the galleries. That was normal, but today, unlike any other day, Cuthbert shouted, "Stop! Stop! Stop that right now!" Pip looked up surprised. "Why?" "Because you're an actor today, and a bearkeeper. Not an odd job, boy. Someone else will do your work for you. Get down from there and come here." As Pip sprang down from the stage and hurried across the pit, Cuthbert opened a leather purse that was hanging from his belt, and he removed 2 coins. He handed the pennies to Pip and invited him to fetch breakfast for both of them. "There are 3 of us," said Pip, jangling the pennies in his palm. "And we'll all be working today?" Cuthbert looked at him for a moment, then glanced at the bear, who was sitting by the side of the stage, picking fleas from her armpit. "Very well," he said. "Get breakfast for the 3 of us." He reached into his purse and pulled out another penny. Around midday, Shakespeare arrived at the Globe, accompanied by a boy who'd been sent to fetch him. He'd overslept, as he usually did, having stayed up all night writing. He was clutching a sheaf of papers. He glanced around the theatre, saw Pip, and sauntered over. "This is for you," he said, not bothering to apologise for his lateness, just handing over the topmost piece of paper. "Thank you, Mr. Shakespeare," said Pip, taking the paper and glancing at the uneven lines of black ink. Shakespeare must have seen the doubt in Pip's face, because he said, "You can read it, can't you?" "Yes, sir." "Are you sure?" "Yes, sir." "Get one of those lads to help you with your cues." "All right." "Yes, sir." "Good luck." Without another word, Shakespeare turned his back on Pip and wandered across the theatre to deliver more pages to other actors, extra lines for the afternoon's performance. Left to himself, Pip hunched over the piece of paper, running his forefinger along the words, mouthing the words to himself as he read what Shakespeare had written. He'd been worried that Shakespeare would have written some complicated scenes or actions for Miranda to perform on her premiere, but to his relief, he saw that the playwright had decided to keep things simple. Tomorrow afternoon, during the performance of Much Ado About Nothing, she would simply have to, first, enter from the left. Okay. Carry a letter to the actor playing Benedict and exit on the right. Second, dance the jig alone in the middle of the stage and watch Beatrice and Hero. Third, enter from the right, chase Dogberry around the stage and exit on the left, pursuing him. Fourth, join the actors on the stage at the end of the play and dance the jig with them. Pip lifted his head and looked at Miranda. "This doesn't look too difficult," he said. "You'll be able to walk and dance and carry a letter, won't you?" Other bears might have been different. Maybe most bears did exactly what they were told, never complaining, never making a fuss. But Miranda was a bear with a mind of her own, much like some of you Year 4s. She knew what she'd liked and what she didn't. She liked eating. She liked sleeping. She liked sitting around doing nothing. She was perfectly content scratching her ears, picking her toes, and searching for fleas in her fur. But she really, really didn't like being told what to do. Not gonna lie, I don't think I do either. At first, she simply ignored Pip's attempt to rehearse her part in Much Ado About Nothing. When he tried to move her from one side of the stage to the other, she watched him with wary eyes, but refused to be moved. Usually, she would have followed him when he tugged the rope, but she sensed that today was different, and so today she refused to budge. When he persisted in his demands, She grew irritable, angry, growling at him and raising her right paw. Pip backed away. He didn't want to lose a tooth or get his head broken open. There was only one thing to be done. He went to see if Molly Plunkett, the wardrobe mistress, and asked for half of his savings. Molly handed over 8 pennies, leaving Miranda tied to a post. Pip walked to Borough Market and bought 6 big loaves of bread, a dozen herrings, and a pot filled with honey. Back at the Globe, the first members of the afternoon's audience were forming a queue, determined to get the best seats in the galleries or the best position in the pit. Pip ducked past, nodding at the doorkeeper, and went inside to fetch Miranda. Together, the boy and the bear left the Globe and walked west until they found a quiet spot behind some houses, set back from the riverbank. Pip had seen farmers training their dogs, repeating the same simple tasks over and over again, rewarding good work with a scrap of food. He'd do the same with Miranda. If she stood when he told her to stand, he would present her with a hunk of bread. If she walked when he asked her to walk, she would get a herring. Well, that was a plan anyway. Pip held the herring in his right hand and the rope in his left. He tugged the rope and said, "Come here." Miranda's nostrils twitched, but her body didn't move. Pip tugged the rope again. "Come on," he said. "Come here." Miranda stayed exactly where she was. "Come on," said Pip. "Look at this lovely fishy. Yummy fishy." "All you have to do is stand up when I say so and take 3 paces towards me. Then you can have it." He dangled the herring in the air. "Come on, stand up." With a sudden movement, too quick for Pip to anticipate, Miranda lunged forward. Her muzzle was wide open. She grabbed the fish from Pip's hand. If he hadn't let go, she'd have eaten his fingers too. Miranda gulped once and the herring vanished down her throat. Pip told himself that he had to be patient. Learning took time. He picked up another herring and said, "Let's try that once more." Miranda licked her lips. Then she opened her mouth and chomped the herring right out of Pip's hand. No, said Pip. "This is supposed to be training, not feeding. You can't just eat fish. You have to earn it. Let's try again." He picked up a 3rd herring. "Walk towards me. Come on, walk." Miranda looked at him. There was a curious expression in her eyes, confident, even mischievous. That's a good word here for. Back in the Bearkeeper's cottage, Miranda had been meek, mild-mannered, and mostly terrified. The type of bear you'd be happy to take home to meet your mother. But now, after a couple of days of freedom, she seemed to be changing. With one swift movement, she grabbed the herring from Pip's hands. "Don't you dare eat it," shouted Pip. Miranda swallowed the herring, then pushed Pip aside and reached for the remaining fish. When Pip tried to stop her, she opened her mouth and growled so loudly that Pip almost peed himself with terror. When Miranda had finished the fish, she scooped the honey out of the earthenware pot and made her way through the 6 loaves. Having looked around to check that there wasn't any more food within reach, she lay down and closed her eyes. A moment later, she was snoring. Pip sighed, looking at the scattered crumbs, the crunched fish bones, the broken honey pot, and a sleeping bear. He came to the melancholy conclusion that he was going to have to do the one thing that he'd hoped he would never, ever have to do. Oh dear, poor Pip. He's trying so hard to train this bear and to perform to the audience, but Miranda's just not having any of it. I wonder what Pip is going to do to get her to carry out those actions. We will have to wait and see in chapter 49.